Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. And can I also thank the Public Audit Committee for what was an excellent report. Rarely has there been such a scathing committee report, but rarely has there been such a scandal to report on. In fact, in my view, there hasn't been one. Now, the committee blasts what it calls significant failings. That is rather stating the obvious. They said, quotes, "The vessels are now millions of pounds over budget and years behind schedule. Scotland's taxpayers and island communities have been badly let down by many of those involved in the project." Correct. They said there was a lack of transparency, a lack of accountability. There was the issue of the lack of a builder's refund guarantee and ignoring CMAL's wish to re-tender. The committee questioned the former First Minister's decision to publicly announce the preferred bidder when she did. They said there is still uncertainty over which minister had the final sign-off on the contract. Still uncertainty. They branded the programme steering group, which was led by Transport Scotland, as weak and toothless. And of course, there were meddling ministers, none of whom has taken the rap. A good quartet of fiddlers can make sweet music, but Mackay, Swinney, Brown and Sturgeon have struck a bum note with islanders throughout this sorry saga. At least Mr Mackay came to give his side of the story to committee, as did Miss Sturgeon. Sadly, the committee's efforts to pin down Keith Brown came to nothing, leading to the committee to chide him for his lack of cooperation. What did Canteen Keith, last seen stirring up constitutional grievance?
Mr Simpson, we will address members by their proper full names and we will not use nicknames in the chamber.
What did Canteen Keith Brown, last seen stirring up constitutional grievance?
Mr Simpson, I would ask you to apologise and then move on.
I will apologise. What did Keith Brown, last seen stirring up constitutional grievance in a members' debate and making a spurious point of order, have to hide? Quite a lot, I suspect. Isn't it significant that none of the key players in this saga who still belong to this Parliament are here today to face the music? And it's a sorry saga indeed, with ultimately no ferries yet and hundreds of millions of pounds of our money squandered. And for what? All because the SNP were hell-bent on giving that yard the contract, even though it plainly wasn't the right thing to do. But it gave ministers, including Humza Yousaf, Mr Mackay and the selfie queen herself, Miss Sturgeon, the chance to get their pictures taken in hard hats. Of course, the most infamous of those was the fake launch by Nicola Sturgeon in 2017, known as the painted-on windows launch, but 6 years later, still no ferries. My advice to anyone who has to take a decision is to keep SNP ministers well away when the Glen Sannox is actually launched into service, hopefully next year. As the committee said, there's been a shroud of secrecy hanging over aspects of this. There was the meeting between the discredited former First Minister and Jim McCall, for which there is no minute. Craig Hoy was quite right to say she may have broken the Ministerial Code, but we have a broken system where the First Minister marks their own homework and that of wayward ministers. That must change. We've also discovered through FOI that a meeting between Transport Scotland and CMAL officials on September the 29th, 2015, just days before Ferguson's was awarded the contract, was also not minuted. Whatever could the reason be for such an oversight? We know the SNP members of the committee tried to water down the report. That's not their job, and they should be ashamed of themselves. No amount of spin and bluster can hide the fact that this is the biggest public spending scandal of the devolution age. The project was, of course, cleared once John Swinney was sure there were no banana skins. There were so many banana skins, you would think the vessels had already sailed to South America and back. Chance would be a fine thing. Arran would do. All the time, the islanders are without a ferry and the costs go up and up. And we've had the BBC disclosure programme claiming that Ferguson's was given preferential treatment when it won the contract. And we now learn that it will be cheaper to start again rather than complete 802 at Port Glasgow. But of course, we have not been told the figures. We can't assess that decision. That would amount to transparency, and this government doesn't do that, of course. Now, to listen to SNP members today, with the exception of Alistair Allen, you would think nothing had gone wrong. The government had done absolutely nothing wrong at all. But at least we've had some plain speaking from Craig Hoy, Neil Bibby, Willie Rennie, Brian Whittle, and the only Green in the chamber today, Jamie Green. But we need to look to the future, Presiding Officer. What does the future hold for the Yard? And again, trying to get an answer on that from the government is absolutely impossible, because Mr Gray will not tell us what he thinks the future holds. We've had the Project Neptune report, but we don't know what his conclusion is. We do know that there is still a bottomless pit, a blank cheque, and it seems it will go on and on. I'm just finishing, Mr Sweeney. It is a scandal, the biggest scandal of the devolution age, and somebody has to take responsibility.